to you. Before we get busy with our topic, sowing seeds of faith today, I wanted to mention that it's strange to me that 4th of July is on a Wednesday. It sort of like messes with everything. I mean, I think 4th of July is supposed to be on a Friday or a Monday every year. Somebody should arrange that. But anyway, it's on Wednesday, and you can have faith that Chris and I will be here for Wednesday evening, first Wednesday prayer and meditation service. So if you're looking for somewhere to come and chill and really, the silence is so beautiful in that service. And we'll be finished in time for the fireworks. So you can get the best of every world. Not only that, but it's also the launch of our Healdsburg outreach. So Reverend Jeff and Lisa, they will be talk about a big bang. They'll be starting their first service in Healdsburg on July the 4th. So now you have options, and they too will be concluding in time to go to, you can still make it to festivities. So that's what's happening in the world, and I wanted to mention that. And Joanne will remind you of that at the end of the service. You know, it's trailblazing for us to be seeding a center in the world, and other communities are looking at saying, what are you doing? It's a wonderful idea to help another community begin, and we're so very proud to be associated with their idea of having a community in Healdsburg. So if you're in Healdsburg, now you know where you are on Wednesday nights, right? All right, so the topic for the month is sowing seeds of faith. So we're going to start slowly with that, because faith is one of those ideas that sometimes people think of it in large religious, spiritual, mystical terms, and there's an entry level where we can think about it quite practically. Some people, as it says in A New Design for Living, just seem to have faith intuitively. Other people were trained very young, and for some of us, we might be thinking about it and exploring it for the very first time and trying to figure our way around. Faith in what? What does faith feel like? So the good news is that when it comes to developing faith, there's a process involved. Just like the metaphor we've been using of sowing seeds, there's the selection of what it is do I want established in my life. That's the selection process. And that period between the growing of it as it becomes the time between the sowing and the harvest, there's this beautiful process. And the idea in the book is that you and I can build faith and grow it with this process, starting with setting our mind on it. That's the choosing, and we'll talk about the ways we can do it in a moment. Basically, it's a combination of courage, taking action, and bravery, and out of that experience gives rise to confidence, and that is very closely related to faith, and it's something that we can all do. So I've been thinking about examples from my life where I had an increase of faith that I could share with you. And I remembered a long time ago, I told you the story about how I grew my faith through ziplining. Well, a whole group of us went to Costa Rica together, and I remembered the story because we're going to Costa Rica again in 2013 with Reverend Chris Michaels, who's coming to speak in 2 weeks over here. And so if you want to go to Costa Rica again, you can check that out and talk to him about that. Anyway, on the trip, there was this opportunity to go ziplining above the rainforests of Costa Rica. And, I have an issue with heights. If I'm already dizzy just looking down over here, Don't say anything. So I decided I was going to take on my discomfort around heights, and I was going to take it on by going ziplining with everybody on the trip. And in Costa Rica, the zip lines are hundreds and hundreds of feet above the virgin forest, the jungle. I mean, it's far down. And not only that, the lines are hundreds, and they seem like miles and miles stretched out across time and space. And there you are, attached on a pulley, holding some handles, suspended in a kind of, what is that called? A cradle. There you're sitting in a cradle, dangling above And there are 7 different zip lines all in a row, all in a sequence, you know. So once you go on it, there's no turning back. You can't say, well, that was nice, I've changed my mind. No, you're going. Because the next place you land is at this tower, this, you know, on a platform, you're going on the next one. And so I was talking to friends about it on that same trip, and they had very similar, a bunch of people who had height concerns like me. They said, you know, for the first 4 or 5 lines, the experience is sheer terror. I totally understood, you know. And then round about the 5th or the 6th ride, you know, halfway through it, you know, well, my experience matched theirs. You get to this point where you have a realization that absolutely nothing you do can affect the outcome of what you're doing. That you're completely vulnerable to what is going on. And no matter how hardly I clenched those things that they gave me to hold on to, it wasn't going to change the fact that I was going. And so I had a moment, I got to see myself for the first time, like in one of those moments, you know, when all time seems to stop and freeze, and yet everything's still going on, and you get the opportunity to witness what's going on. And I think I got to see, for the first time, perhaps ever, who I might be in the world if I truly yielded to what was going on. If I really surrendered, I got to see what I might be like in the world when I wasn't fighting what was happening. And that was a terrific thing for me, because my faith grew in a very specific way. First of all, my faith grew in myself, that I could do that. I probably won't ever need to do it again. In fact, I'm certain come January, I won't be ziplining down. I will be taking the tram down. That's the first shift. The second faith I got, I developed a trust that I witnessed myself surrendered to what was happening. And so now there's a knowing in me. It's like a place that I can go back and visit, or I can reference the memory of it. And that there's a confidence in that, a strength that comes from that. And another point of growth for me is that I had a realization that heights don't really cause my distress. It's my attitude about them, about heights, that causes the distress. Specifically, the stories I tell myself about what will happen when I'm in the proximity of heights. And what came to my awareness is that sometimes I have more faith in the predictions of my fear than I have faith in what is actually happening. And that was big awareness for me. It's the sort of thing I could talk about, but until I experienced it and had that, I call it a faith experience, that deepening, that it shifted into something that was more confident, more like a knowing. So the experience did play a role in it, and that's what he writes about in A New Design for Living. This is the old cover, but right about on page 85, there's this section. It says that experience is the measure of faith. I can see the relationship. Have the experience, and it sinks something like an anchor of knowing in me. So I can see that. In fact, the chapter here assigned for this week is so amazing about faith. He says, you know, we don't realize it, but every single aspect of our lives is faith-based. Sometimes when people use the word faith, they are thinking of something ethereal, otherworldly, super religious. But actually, you and I have deep-rooted, confident faith all the time. From taking a step and fully expecting the floor to be there to hold us, to turning the light switch on, you might say, and having an expectation or a confidence that it will be an illuminating experience, to taking a breath and not even knowing the mechanisms behind it or why it should be the case that it happens, and that certain processes will take place and the oxygen will be assimilated, having complete confidence that all of that will happen. He said, without faith, we don't exist. We don't have access to the truth. which is what reality is. And the assignment in the book is for us to develop that same kind of confidence in other areas of our lives also. For example, in the area of my mind and its relationship to the greater, my inner world and my relationship to all that is, to have confidence in that. He asks us to try it out for ourselves. And that's, from the very beginning of my exposure to the Center for Spiritual Living, and that's one of the things I appreciated the most. Try it out for yourself. Don't go on the testimony of someone else. Certainly be inspired, but when it comes down to it, try it out yourself. Be your own experiment in this regard. So I was thinking about ways that I learned to take little steps before I took big leaps of faith. And I wanted to share some of them with you. And here are some ways that I practice in a very simple way that have resulted in increasing my faith and my confidence and my relationship with all that is. The first one is the practice of prayer. I like to write my prayers out for a couple of reasons. The first is to write them down. It slows down my thought process and it brings me to being far more precise and taking ownership of exactly what is ending up on the page. There's a kind of clarity that my soul enjoys when I really take the time to, and I try to write beautifully and with a good pen, so it becomes like a ceremony. Not just like, when I'm journaling freehand, that's different. I try to write mindfully my prayers out. Not only is that in itself something that expands me, but now I have a record of my prayers. And I take great pleasure in returning to those written prayers from time to time to read them. And when I do, I sometimes can very clearly see the outworking of the prayers. And that investigation in itself results in a tremendous expansion of confidence in the relationship between my prayer work and my world. And so I can see how the simple practice of writing down and referring it, in other words, checking, has the effect of broadening and deepening my faith. Because now I can say, look what I was part of. Maybe I can be part of something a little bigger. There's another practice that's equally as simple to practice that I find has truly mystical, faith-building qualities, and that is the practice of expressing gratitude. I didn't expect it at first that it would grow my faith. I thought it might make me happier. It did that too, but it also grew my faith. Before I tell you about my practice, I just want to share with you some interesting information about gratitude, because by itself it's such a fascinating study and practice. And Sherry, who did the prayer this morning, sent me an article about a conference that recently took place at the Palace of Fine Arts. It was called Pathways to Gratefulness Conference, where people got together, researchers, psychologists, to talk about ways in which they could cultivate gratefulness in their lives. So as I was getting ready to share with you about my practice, I remembered all this article, and so I'm taking a detour to tell you about some of the stuff from the conference. One of the psychologists there from UC Davis, his name is Robert Emmons. He cites scientific research that says that people who regularly practice expressing gratitude are shown to experience a variety of measurable benefits, psychological, physical, and social. And I love that sort of thing. It encourages me to go back to my practice, because sometimes I'll get a practice like gratitude, and it'll work very well. Then I'll take it for granted, and I'll forget about it. And then so something like this, it reminds me to go back with a beginner's mind and try it all over again. And I'm getting all ready to do that, because I find the practice of gratitude has truly magical effects. And here's the practice. I set a certain amount of time for myself, say 40 days. That's truly biblical. Or 30 days, that's a month. Anything more than 20, because you need more than 20 days to set a good new practice in place. Otherwise, Well, certainly I do. So then for the, let's say the 30 days, what I do is I make a reminder when I get into bed, then my practice begins, and I call to mind the very last person I interacted with. And I try to bring their face into my awareness. And with their face into my awareness as best as I can, I say, I bless you, I release you from all expectations, and I'm grateful for your life. And I think, all right, now who was the person before that I interacted with? Then I find that person in my memory, and I repeat it. I bless you, I release you from all expectations, and I'm thankful for your life. And then I go to the next previous person, and I usually can't make it all the way to the beginning of the day, because usually what happens is I fall asleep. But I fall asleep on a high, and I notice that I wake up in the morning feeling expanded. To me, it's like going on a diet cleanse. You know, after 40 days, I've got this secret brewing inside of me, because I don't tell people what I'm doing. I just start to get this like giddy smile on my face, and I'm looking at people like I have to. I know what I was doing with you last night, you know. And every time I do this exercise, I have what I call an increase in faith in two ways. Once again, faith in myself, because I know I can do this. And not only can I do this, I am starting to have confidence in its results. I trust it. And the second thing is, more importantly even, as I practice it more, I start to have a growing faith in something I can't explain, because I don't truly know how it works. I'll say it in Ernest Holmes' language, in a power greater than I am. And a power greater than I am that I'm learning to trust through this experiment, through this practice, through this definite choosing of the practice, the follow-through, and then the watching of the results. The gratitude practice truly unlocks something in me that is a mystery. At that conference I mentioned, there was this study where they took 3 separate groups of people and gave them a similar assignment. The first group of people were given the assignment to keep a gratitude journal, and they were to write down 5 things every day for which they were grateful. That's it. That was as simple as that. The second group of people were given a journal. It was called a hassle journal. And their instruction was to write down 5 things that hassled them and also explain how it hassled them. That was it. And then the third group were given an event journal with no particular instructions as to whether it was positive or negative events. They were just to write about the experience. And so, of course, you can probably predict the results, and I'll read them to you. After the 10 weeks when all the participants were called in, and they were assessed through questionnaires about their level of happiness and other aspects of their life, those with the gratitude journal turned up to be 25% happier than all the other participants. And not only that, they spontaneously revealed that they were more likely inclined to exercise and reported fewer health problems, which I love. A reminder, go back, be simple, do the simple practice, let it have its profound results. I don't really understand the mechanisms of it anyway, but every time I do it, I feel this broadening inside of me. More information about that conference in San Francisco. One of the professors from, I can't remember where he's from, Philip Watkins, I should have written it down. Anyway, he's been studying the characteristics of grateful people since 1996, and he has identified 3 primary characteristics. So I'm just mentioning this to you in case you take the assignment on. This is what you are becoming. The first characteristic of a grateful person is that they have an innate sense of abundance, enoughness, no matter what's going on. The second characteristic is that grateful people have a capacity to enjoy the simple pleasures of life. In other words, to yield to what is going on and not always be living in what isn't yet happening. And the third characteristic of grateful people is that they have an easy way of appreciating other people. They do it easily. It comes naturally. And interestingly, the opposite of a grateful person has yielded a set of characteristics too. Now, it's not intended to be a threat, but if you, if you don't practice the assignment, here's the opposite of a grateful person, a person who has a sense of entitlement. People who are not grateful have very high expectations of other people, and the expectations are very frequently unrealistic. People who are not grateful also walk around the world, instead of living in the moment, they have a sense that what they deserve isn't happening. And they tend to exhibit a type of narcissism. That's the professor's analysis. I mention it to you because I want to stimulate your interest in taking the leap of faith with the gratitude exercise. You know, this is something that you can do. You can jump off on the zip line of gratitude, try it for yourself, and see where it takes you. Because I'm all about taking those small steps that are within our reach. I'm not the sort of person who advocates blind faith before it's time. To take leaps that may be dangerous when you don't have the muscle and the wherewithal and the awareness to do it. I'm more inclined to believe that when we build our inner life small step by small step by small step, it gets to a point where we've set in motion a machine inside that grows abundantly in its right season. Sadly, many times people will come to a place like this, or to a teacher or a counselor at a time of crisis. And at that time of crisis, they want and need instant faith. And it's difficult. I'm more an advocate of practice during the good times, when the doorway is already open to celebration. Don't let good be the enemy of better. Practice during the good times so that as you grow and deepen in your faith, should something go bump in the night, you will have resiliency and something to draw upon. That's what I think. But even in difficult times, I think there are things that we can do, and all is not lost. I was speaking to a friend of mine who's been experiencing some financial difficulties, and so I started talking to him about the role of faith and what he had learned so far. And he said, well, you know, I learned a lot during these financial difficulties, and the first thing I did was I started educating myself and reading all the inspiring writers about this practice of giving and how important it is to not block the flow. And so I allowed that material to inspire me, and I started to give. And he said, but I got to tell you that it all sounds great, except that when you're giving and you're financially stressed, it messes with your head. So you're trying to build your faith, but you're doing something that can almost seem like the opposite of what you're supposed to do. And he says it's important to be aware of that when you're growing your inner life, that you may feel some dissonance just emerge just from what you're doing. And he said, and what I really got out of this practice is that, that faith is not the same as a gamble. It's not a risk, taking a chance. I asked him to explain what he meant. He said, you know, it's not like those people who go and park in the 1 hour zone, but they know their shopping is going to take 2 hours, and they say the universe will provide. He said, that's not it. And he said, I got very clear on that. He said, to me, this building of faith, to me, means you take a practice, like gratitude at night, like writing your prayer, like giving, like you take a practice and you mindfully build a relationship with it. You really let it grow in you, and then watch how that grows your faith, so that the two of you are dancing forward in your expansion. He said it's not wild guesswork or an unreasonable request to believe something that goes against your intellect. I went, wow, that's fascinating. He said, yes, and I also learned, he offered, that you can't force faith into being, but you can plant it, and you can nurture it, and you can grow with it as it grows. It's a partnership. I thought that was very well said and very inspiring. I asked another friend also about faith and asked him what he had learned in all these studies about faith, and he also shared some poignant, tender moments. And I think studying faith will do this to us. It will take us to our tenderest experiences. He said, what I learned, and this goes right along with the chapter in the book, he said, what I learned is that everybody already has faith. You don't have to generate it at all. It's already there. And what I had to learn to do is take my faith from where it was and put it in a new direction. And that takes humility. And that takes attention. Because, for example, he said, if you've had years of faith in the thought that this world is bad, and you begin a practice of looking for the evidence of good, you can fully expect, he said, that old established image to reassert itself from time to time. And so you need to be patient. I really thought about that. In the New Design for Living, the authors invite us to think of faith as the container with which we dip into life to get our share. And growing faith then is to be thought of as increasing the size of the container from a modest cup to maybe a bucket. And to do it by gently stretching your idea of life, gently stretching into a larger expectation for what life may bring to you. That has been my experience, that through gentle stretching, consistent practice, as my faith grows, so do I seem to get more out of life. I'm not sure I can always explain how it works, but I'm learning to trust it. In times of doubt, when it seems like your work is not going the way it should be, or the old image is coming to reassert itself, the authors recommend that we talk to ourselves during those moments of nervousness or doubt, and gives examples of words we might say to ourselves. And here's a sample from page 88, where they recommend we say this to ourselves. I believe. I accept. I know there is a power greater than I am. I know it is right where I am. I know it is working for me, as me, through me. Beautiful. And I know I have used it frequently. So let us use it now as the foundation for our meditation and prayer time together. I invite you, if you feel comfortable, to let your eyes close, breathe in, and exhale as we let our thoughts turn within. I believe. I accept. I know there is a power greater than I am. I know it is right where I am. I know it is working for me, as me, through me. And so every day I am learning to have a stronger faith by learning to think in a bigger way. I'm learning to have a more complete mental picture of the good I desire to share with the world. I believe. I accept. I know that there is a power greater than I am. I know it is right where I am. I know it is working for me, as me, and through me. I believe, I accept, I know that there is a power greater than I am. I know it is right where I am. And I know it is working for me, as me, and through me. And once again, a deep breath in, followed by a sigh. As we make a transition to that part of our service where we share. So I invite the musicians to come back to the stage and invite the ushers to stand. And won't you please take your gift in your hand and say after me, I bless this gift. I send it forth to heal and prosper. Does amazing work in the world. And so it is. Thank you, ushers. Please receive.